Welcome to today's EMBN Show from the beautiful English Lakes. Yes, folks, we're in the incredibly beautiful Lake District in the UK, and our location is the Old Dungeon Gill. It's also got the Climbers Bar pub here, worth a visit if you're ever in the area. I'm joined by Jon Woodhouse from Merida. Now, Jon is actually a former editor of a magazine. I suppose we're both sort of former magazine journalists, aren't we?
Yeah, you could say that, definitely.
Here's a question to get things rolling then, Jon. We see an increasing amount of people these days go to trail centres and bike parks, fantastic places, lots of coffee shops, but we're here in the Lake District. This is a proper sort of raw mountain bike experience. What do you lean to more on? Natural terrain or bike parky stuff?
I'm definitely, probably because of my age, I've always been like more natural terrain.
Your age?
Yeah. I do think it's an age thing, because there honestly weren't many bike parks when I kind of started riding, which was late 1990s.
Yeah, true. I guess the first trail centre bike park was in North Wales with Sian and David started that, and Coed Brennan, didn't they?
Yeah.
Do you know what, Jon? I've noticed recently in the hills and woods around my place is that mountain bikers seem to be hanging around chatting quite a lot. Is there a tendency for the modern day mountain biker to be a tad lazy, maybe?
I'm not sure lazy's the right word, Steve. It's a pretty harsh accusation, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, that's
strong words.
Do you know what? I've been mountain mountain biking far more of my life than I have been e-mountain biking. So I should reel it in a little bit, shouldn't I? But there seems to be a lot of chatting going on along in the woods. I get to the top of a climb on my e-mountain bike, I am hanging, and there's guys hanging about, just chatting.
Yeah, well, it's always been the same, hasn't it? You stop for a chat at the top for everyone to catch up. You stop for a chat at the bottom for everyone to catch up. You do a bit of chatting on the way back up. It's probably only the centres where you're not actually chatting to your mates. All
right, well, let's return to the subject of the local woods. What about trail centres and bike parks? Now, I see bike parks, you're spending... Say a trail is 3 minutes long, right? Or call it 5 minutes long at the most. You're doing an uplift. You're spending if you do 10 runs in a day, that's 50 minutes riding and say 3 hours in an uplift van. I'm not saying it's a different mountain bike lifestyle to what I was brought up with.
Yeah, I think if you're out here, you'd be like a 5-hour ride. You'd be riding for most of your 5-hour ride.
And that is mountain biking, whether e-mountain biking or mountain biking. You are involved, you're engaged in the terrain, aren't you?
Yeah.
And I hardly see any mountain bikers in this kind of environment. I see less mountain bikers here than there was maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah, and I guess that's maybe because bike parks, there are more of them. They're pretty cool. They're really accessible. You don't have to schlep out there. The quality of what you do for the time spent, what you're doing is pretty high. You tend to go if you ride a descent, that's going to be a good one, isn't it?
Well, you just said it there, the quality of your time. If you go to a bike park, right, you get a lift to the top of the hill and you freewheel down the hill.
Yeah.
Where is the effort involved in that? No, I'm only kidding, folks. Riding downhill is an incredibly physical business.
Oh, yeah,
right?
No doubt.
I think riding downhill, your heart rate is probably zone 4 or 5.
Oh, easily, yeah. It's definitely up there. I think when I've done heart rate monitors, you see that it's peaking on some of the descents.
Yeah.
Probably more so than me climbing uphill, I would be honest.
Well, go on then. So, what's your typical mountain bike ride involved these days then?
Well, I think if I dip into my history of,
what do you mean your history?
My Strava riding history.
Oh, right, okay. I know where this is going.
Yeah, so it's not actually looking good.
So we're talking here about how does Garmin Strava measure? There's elapsed time and there's actual riding time, isn't there?
Yeah. You've got your elapsed time, which is the time you were out, and then the riding time, which is the time that you were moving.
This is an insight into the world of what percentage of your time do you spend riding mountain bikes compared to e-mountain bikes?
I'm still probably a solid 60 to 70% on a normal bike.
Okay, go on then. Hit us with some data. Elapsed time versus riding time. And I'm going to get mine out as well, actually.
I'll have a little quick dig, but I looked at this before and it's not great. So, last biggish ride that I did, this was actually at a race.
A mountain bike race?
A mountain bike, an enduro race.
Right, go on.
Out in the Alps. So my moving time, 2 hours 40.
Right.
My lapse time, 4 hours, 37 minutes.
Hold on. So hold on, that's almost 2 hours, 2 hours of what must account for just faff, right?
Oh yeah, either faff or kind of recounting the good old days of when I was just riding just a moment ago.
Okay, right.
Yeah, and...
Well, it's nice to recount, and it's just, mountain biking is a social event as well.
Oh, yeah.
And folks, please let us know after this discussion how much of your time is spent riding the bike versus, well, out and about in the hills. I'm going to hit you with some of my data. My last ride, 3 hours total time.
Yeah.
2 hours 56 actual riding time, and that's 1,700 meters, 40 kilometers, and with a heart rate which is pretty much all zones 3 and 4. Yeah. And that's on an e-mountain bike, especially on the Kelly's F100. Yeah. That's like a lot of mountain bike time, right?
I think it's a similar story when I've looked at some of my e-mountain bike rides, and we're getting much more similar. I think it was it just a quick ride of an evening, about an hour 57 riding, and time actually out there, 2.5 hours.
It's funny, isn't it? Do you think, I think on an e-mountain bike, folks, we're no way having a dig at mountain bikers, because like I said, I've spent most of my life either downhill riding or enduro riding, and it's fantastic. But when we analyse the time spent, and I think the reason on an e-mountain bike is that you get sucked into the vibe of, like, you know, by the way, that ride was in turbo mode. It's like you get sucked into it, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing is, like, you can do your chatting when you're on the way back up the hill, because you can both chat to each other if you want to, like, crank it up a couple of modes, still have a nice conversation on the way up instead of being like, wait, I'm going to catch my breath. Okay, now let's start riding. Yeah. And then wait at the top, let's catch my breath. It's
funny because, like, if I need a drink of water or one of those energy bars, which I seem to be addicted to these days, I literally kind of move my back, what do you call those things that go around your waist?
Your bum bag, fanny pack for the Americans.
I've moved my bum bag, fanny pack around, and I'm just drinking my water, eating my energy bar on the way up the hill. So I get to the top of the hill and I'm ready to dive in again.
Yeah, I think that's because on a conventional bike, it's like any excuse, just a little breather. Just be, oh, sorry, I just need to check a bolt is tight, and it's just like, catch your breath, keep going.
And it's quite interesting. I remember going on the first ever specialised e-bike launch back in 2015, and there was Mike Sinyard, who was, I think Mike was probably in his late 60s at the time, and there was other journalists there who were, you know, kind of teenagers, and the group was no more than like 400 meters apart. Yeah. And I think that's the difference, isn't it? That it kind of levels the field a little bit.
I think that's totally the thing, that everyone can stay together in a pretty strict group, whereas in even like fairly well matched, if you want to call them analog bikes or normal bikes, then there's always going to be differences. If you're fast down the bottom, you're faster up to the top. Then you have to wait, and what do you do when you wait? If you're a mountain biker, you faff. You do some solid faff.
Check your dials and your suspension, or check your phone. Folks, let us know how much of your mountain bike time is actually spent riding versus the elapsed time. Let us know in the comments. Okay, time for a bit of news now. Now, Ford recently launched some e-mountain bikes in the shape and form of the Mustang and Bronco. Now, John, I know you're a car person.
Yeah, like a car too.
You've got the odd car in your driveway, haven't you? Mustang, that's that kind of racy, sporty number, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it's always been that classic two-seat sports car.
Now, this is what Ford say about the Mustang bike, or the bikes indeed. This pair of ponies bring the celebrated performance-driven design and technology of the Mustang sports car e-bikes, with handling that mimics the iconic sports car. I love the use of ponies there. Ponies, horsepower.
Pony car.
I mean, how many horsepower do you reckon a Mustang's got? What's the torque in a Mustang?
I think if you get a fancy 5-litre V8 one, which is the one you really want to have, obviously, I think 540 newton meters of torque.
You actually know that data? Yeah. Okay, well, the only data I got on the e-mountain bike is it's 750 watts peak power, hub motor 85 newton meters, 720 watt-hour battery, 120mm travel front and rear, 27.5 wheels, 4 power modes, eco, normal, sport and track. Well, that's a new one to add, isn't it? Track mode.
Sporty.
So this 60th anniversary edition will be available through Ford dealers in limited quantities. The weight on that bike is around about 30 kilos. But the Bronco as well, John, similar kind of hub drive, 27.5 wheels, 720 watt-hour battery. Designed with a goat, goes over any type of terrain. Well, that's a new use of the word. The prices on these bikes, folks, start at $4,500. John, we're in here in the Lake District. You've got a new bike, which we're going to take into these hills.
Yeah.
Merida E7000.
Yeah.
Sorry,
E160
E7000. Lightweight, full power.
Yeah, kind of, I'd say middling weight. Depends how light you want to go. Talking about 22, 23 kilos, depending on spec.
And I think, with the range extent of 360, takes it to almost 1,000 watt hours of.
Yeah, on the carbon bike, 600 built-in battery, so that takes up to 960 watt hours. And we do the alloy bike, which has a 750 watt battery, so then over 1,000.
And that's kind of interesting because it kind of relates back to what we were talking about earlier. If you wanted to do this kind of riding, if you're a heavier rider and the terrain is super technical, you've got the option of going, 960. Whereas if you ride in maybe a trail centre or a bike park, it's going to be the 600, right?
Yeah. I think that's very much how I kind of use it. That it stays as 600 if I'm out for like a couple of hours, go for a kind of quick rip around where I live. Yeah. But then if you're out here somewhere where you've got big mountains, you want to go over that one and over the next, then
and the next, because the 960 watt hours, that's going to be for some people that's going to be a 2,000 meter minimum. Like I could probably do 2,000 meters of climbing on that bike in turbo.
Yeah, I'd imagine somewhere around that.
And you at 65 kilos are definitely.
I wish I was 65 kilos, Steve.
Folks, let us know what your thoughts are of the new Ford e-mountain bikes. Okay, folks, where have you been riding your e-mountain bikes in the last few weeks? Time to look at cool places. John, where's one of the favourite places you've been riding on a mountain bike?
At home in the glorious Forest of Dean, Forest of Dreams.
You see, I've been really looking forward to coming here to the Lake District.
Oh, yeah. It's been a while.
It's pretty special. But folks, kicking off with where you've been to, starting off with hello from the City of Smiles, Bacolod City in the Philippines. This is from Bumpy Costco. And looks like they've got 4 mountains and a volcano with plenty of natural trails.
Sounds lovely, actually.
And Bumpy says this is the only S-Works Turbo Levo 2024 in the Philippines. That's a pretty big statement, isn't it?
It's a bold claim.
It's a bold statement. And then next up is Demullerizer on a Focus. And then finally in Romania, a mountain peak called, what does that say, John?
Steflesti.
Right. With a beautiful view. I mean, Romania, unexplored lands, right?
Yeah. Lots of lovely big mountains, I guess.
Folks, thanks so much for sending your photographs in and some really interesting detail on some of those locations. And don't forget to check out our video from the Lake District, which will be coming out on the channel in a few weeks' time. Okay, getting a bit distracted here, but it's time for some feedback from last week's show where we talked about carbon versus alloy. I had to reel Owen in quite a lot on that one because we could have talked for hours. Comment here from Tim8009 who says, I think the geometry and components are more important than the frame material. I have an alloy Levo and a carbon decoy, crikey. Not only does the Levo weigh less, I feel more confident jumping on it. Carbon versus alloy, John. Obviously, coming from Merida, you spend every day of the week talking about carbon and alloy bikes.
Yeah, obviously.
What's the secret?
I think the secret is in the engineering, really, isn't it? It's how it's made. That's how you get the bike feel. I'm assuming with the right engineers doing the right things, you can make a carbon bike feel a certain way. You can probably make an alloy bike feel a certain way. So I've got to say, I generally agree with that. That yes, the components are really important, but the engineering is more important.
Exactly right, because the E160 7000. It's a bike with 174mm travel, but it's got double down tyres on it.
Yeah.
I read some bike tests recently where the tester said, oh, this was the only bike with solid casing tyres. All e-bikes should have solid casing tyres.
Yeah, I mean, contrary to your comment before, I actually weigh about 74 kilos now, middle-aged spread. But yeah, I mean, even I need double down casing on an e-bike because you just want it to last. Otherwise, you're going to be punching holes in exo casings and the like. Because
the weight, sometimes carbon is confused with weight. People think you have carbon because it's lesser weight, but carbon is used because you can manipulate it in different ways, right?
Yeah, and it allows you to create much different structures. And also, if you do save some weight, it means that you can go, well, let's take that weight and put it into a solid casing tyre.
Exactly.
So if we save 900 grams on the frame weight, and go, right, chuck that into the tyres.
Yeah.
Bike's going to ride loads better for it.
Exactly, exactly. Then we had another look at the comments. Owen's first mid-drive eMTB ride. This is from Orange Gunslinger, who says, I love seeing people who might not quite get e-bikes ride them and completely get it. It happens to all of us at one point. I actually like climbing now. So I took Owen out. I mean, you know Owen. So this was his first ever e-mountain bike mid-drive ride. Within 100 meters, he was obsessed.
Oh yeah, I can see that totally.
Because climbing is a jigsaw puzzle, isn't it? And it's like, it's physical, it's mental in terms of the line choice, the strategy to try and keep your heart rate down. It's a huge subject, isn't it?
Yeah, I totally remember my first ride on a kind of a proper mid-drive e-mountain bike. Won't name the brand, but riding downhill.
Go on, John, name the brand.
No, I'm not going to. Be professional. But downhill, I was just like, oh, I don't really get this. I didn't feel it was short travel. It was quite. But then uphill, and I was just like, oh my God, like every corner uphill is like a berm. Yeah. And I was just like, this is like going downhill, uphill and downhill.
Yeah. John, those were
Great times.
Those were in the days when you were 65 kilos, though, weren't
Yeah, exactly. Went up it a lot faster.
And then we have another comment here from El Sugimota, who says, I fought the urge to buy an eMTB for a long time. I added one to the quiver recently, and wow, it's so much fun, especially climbing things that were never possible on the manual bikes. And then we have a story like, then we have from eMTB Squared, awesome video, one of your best, that's very kind of you. And then from Jure Tomej 6543, this is exactly why I bought my eMTB 2 years ago. I moved near a hill with an awful incline, and I used to feel exhausted climbing it with my acoustic XC bike. Now I can do it, even with my son on a shotgun. So there you go, folks. Climbing. I think, John, we're still at the beginning of the climbing curve.
Yeah.
I think there's so much more to learn. I think there's more people going to learn about the art of climbing. For me, it's a kind of almost a new beginning in the world of MTB.
I think from the way you have to tackle like an uphill climb, I guess maybe unless you're like a Tom Pickup character with like so much fitness that you basically are an e-bike, but I've never been able to climb as fast, and you have to think about it in a totally new way. And controversial now, I'd probably prefer technical climbs on an e-bike to technical descents on an e-bike.
Interesting. Do you know what, John? That could be its subject all in itself. Folks, thanks so much for your comments on our videos. They're very much appreciated. And we will, like I said, get involved in them here on the weekly show. John, how's that Diet Coke going down?
Delicious, refreshing.
Like I said, folks, thanks so much to the old Dungeon Gill for putting us up. This is the part of the show now, John. We're going to the bike vault. Martin Ashton swears that we should have all bikes in the bike vault drive side, but I say to Martin that on an E-man bike, both sides are drive sides. You drive on both sides of a bike, right?
Yeah.
Anyhow, Tracy in the engine room in Banff, Canada, taking a break in the Rockies, Cube Stereo Hybrid 160. John, nice or super nice shot?
I'd say that's super nice. That's got a lovely big mountain.
Look at that backdrop.
Yeah, a bit of industrial heritage in the foreground.
I love it. I think that's
great.
I think actually that's one of my favourite ever bike vault submissions. Tracy, thanks for that. Next up, Ricky Evans in Aberdare.
Oh.
Huh? Cube 160.
Valley's boy.
Yeah. Nice,
Yeah.
super nice.
I'll give that a nice.
Nice, okay. And then this is Tom Ray's Canyon Talk 7, and this is in the US. That's a nice background, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? Makes me think of swimming more than biking. But
John, I'm going to have to rush you.
Super nice. Though.
Super nice. And then Chris Blackburn bought his first eMTB. This is also a stereo hybrid, because that's 3 cubes in the bike vault.
Yeah.
Huh? Nice and super nice.
Send them down. I'm going to give that a nice.
It's a nice. Folks, thanks so much for your bike vaults. I think, Tracy, like I said, I think that's one of my favourite bike vault shots ever. Okay, time to get social now, kicking things off. This is Tracy Mosley's mechanic.
Yeah.
Riding up. He's a handy rider, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't think that's a particularly mild trail downhill, and he's making pretty light work of that going uphill, so fair play.
Yeah, fair play, Mr. Lund. That is super stylish. Next up, John, DJI Amflow. It's all happening, isn't it?
It is. It's going off. It's the iPhone moment.
What was the Merida kind of feeling when you guys turned up at Eurobike this year? Were you surprised?
Yeah, I think there was a certain degree of surprise. Obviously, like with kind of what's coming from other key players, but yeah, I think that's a big development. It's quite interesting, and especially who it comes from too, because it's not just a quick startup. DJI, super well established.
Exactly, and hopefully the next few days are going to enable us to showcase what e-mountain bikes are capable of here in this beautiful Lake District. And then finally, John, Grandad with a head cam. I mean, e-mountain bike, right? From 15-year-old to 85-year-old.
And with a smile on his face.
Exactly.
So good times.
That's it for this week's EMBN show, folks. Coming up on the channel next few weeks, we've got Owen's adventure in mid-Wales. And we've also got our trek into the lakes with me and John. Tune into that.